Hey there, what's up internet? In my last video, you may have noticed something a little bit odd. No, it wasn't the awful jump cut here, or the terrible editing here. Nope, apparently the strangest part was that I did a Forge Fast Expand with a Cannon Rush. I've been meaning to make this video for a while, but that was because I wanted to share my experiences with this build. Now though, I'm making this video out of spite. Loco, in one of his more recent videos, is quoted as saying,
to this, because I am still convinced that cannon rushes are not something you can win games with, honestly.
One of the Reddit comments in my last video said, also, the video starts with you cannon rushing the Zerg. I think that no one who thinks that cannon rushing Zerg is viable in PvZ has anything to say about how top Koreans play. Damn, man, I put a bunch of hours into developing this build. Upwards of 200 PvZs, tons of time in theory crafting and adapting. Hell, this build even helped me get to Masters. I guess part of what really irks me is that the commenter said this in a video where the cannon rush actually fucking worked. So I'm here to clear up misconceptions with this build and prove that it's not completely garbage like everyone seems to think. So before we go any farther, I want to outline the opening, then I'll address what happens after. Generally, you'll be opening with a 14 pylon at the opening to your natural or to your main base if it's a pocket natural. Rule of thumb is to move a probe out at 13 supply right when you queue the 14th probe. This probe builds the pylon, then scoots across the map to scout, and I'll touch on scouting a bit later. Move out another probe to the pylon right after you finish queuing your 16th probe. This probe builds the forge, then just rallies back to the mineral line. From here, you're scouting for what the Zerg is doing. In a very general sense, what you're looking for is one of three things. Number one is an early pool, the second is a hatch pool hatch, and the third is a 3 hatch before pool. This build works equally well against all three, but what you commit to in the early game is very, very dependent on which one your opponent does, so it's very important to know. Against early pool, throw down a cannon at your natural, then a nexus, then a gateway, and a pylon, and wall the best you can. This will generally happen at around 19 or 20 supply. You should be able to have a cannon up and a 1 hex gap wall with a nexus on the way, meaning you'll take basically 0 damage from the early attack, and this will put you ahead slightly economically. You should leave your scouting probe on the other side of the map and check for expansion timings. Zerg really likes to throw down 2 hatches off a failed all-in, because there's not a whole lot of ways for Protoss to punish it. Well, not with any standard build, that is. Sneak your probe into the mineral line of the natural base and throw down a pylon and a cannon or 2. I like to do 2 cannons if the hatch is already more than 2/3 of the way done, because it means less of a chance of a queen or a spine crawler killing my rush before I can kill the hatchery. And trust me, if you don't kill or cancel the hatchery, you are not in an optimal position. It's not unwinnable, but it's hardly easy to play from there. 3 hatch before pool and hatch pool hatch play are very similar to counter, and they play out almost exactly the same. You just immediately cannon rush the natural base and use pylon blocks to keep any drones out while the cannon finishes up. 9 times out of 10 they'll cancel the hatchery, and from there you're golden. You cannon the natural base because it means they have to rely on the 3rd base, which is usually more exposed, and I'll get to why that's more important later. Absolutely under no circumstance do you cannon rush more than 1 base. You need every single spare resource you can get to hold off any follow-up aggression from the Zerg player, so it is absolutely not worth it to spend more resources on canceling the 3rd base. This is exactly the mistake that Loco's opponent made in his video, among other things. From here, the Zerg has 3 more options in order from least likely to most likely. He can go roaches to clean up the cannons and macro from there. He can go some sort of half-assed pressure with Ling Bane drops or a handful of Roach Ravagers. Or he can say fuck it and go balls to the walls with Roach Ravager, Ling Bane, Proxy Hatch, or a Nidus. So here we are, the crux of why people think this build is shit. Likely they tried it once, maybe a handful of times, and decided that dying to all-ins wasn't for them. I don't blame them. I'm stubborn though, and that stubbornness is almost matched by my disdain for the gate expand opener into the Pika style. So I've tried and I've figured out how to hold basically every single all-in that Zerg can do, and it revolves around 2 very simple things. The first is chrono boost the absolute shit out of your gateway. Get as many units as you can as soon as possible. I generally go Zealots to hold the wall, Stalkers to push out any Overlords, Adepts, Sentry, then constant alternating Stalkers and Adepts until Warp Gate is finished. Your Stalker should accent your pylon placement by making it so that no Nidus location is possible where it isn't in range of at least one pylon cannon, another mistake made by Loco's opponent. The second bit, get a robo as fast as you fucking can. I don't have exact timings on this as I play more based on general game sense than anything, but you need to rush that shit out before you even throw down your second and third gateways. I believe I usually get it after the first Stalker or Adept, but it's really hard to say because again, I don't use builds. If you get a robo at the proper timing, a chrono boosted immortal will pop out pretty much the exact second that any sort of roach based aggression could possibly be hitting you. If you scout or sniff out or sixth sense any sort of committed aggression at the front of your base, throw down 2 more cannons at your natural, another pylon, and delay and delay and delay until immortals. Then micro your fucking heart out. If it's a Nidus, pull probes and try to hold it the best you can. Because the Nidus relies so much on the Zerg cutting drones and getting units out in a lair as fast as possible, it is very, very likely that you can lose up to 16 probes, hold off the rush, and still have an equal or greater number of probes than he does, since you should have been building them that whole time. After holding off any sort of aggression, you should have an equal or greater number of probes and a greater army supply. Zerg has to balance army with drones because of the larva mechanic, so the optimal move here is to attack, usually right after Warp Gate finishes. If they droned up behind, you just kill them because they have no units, and if you force them to build units, they're not building drones, so your economic lead increases. If you're lucky, they ignored the cannons in their natural and built the 4th base. This means 2 amazing things. Generally, no matter how many units they have, you can kill their 4th base, and it also means you can warp into the pylon in their natural and do some sneaky beaky business in their mineral lines with a handful of adepts. Now, I'm a lot less versed in the late game because most games will end right there, or, sometime before that. But this build transitions extremely well into Pika styles, if you throw down a 3rd at the same time you move out on the map. Or if you despise Pika style as much as I do, you can throw down a safety Stargate and get a handful of safety Phoenix, then go into Gateway Immortal Storm style, which has the capability to play really aggressive on the map, even against Roach Hydra, Lurker, or Lingbane comps. That eventually leads into late game where I can supplement my army with a handful of Colossus, Tempest, Disruptors, all that cool tier 3 tech, depending on what my opponent has. Now, this isn't a catch-all tutorial on the build because I don't want this being an hour long, but if you have any specific questions, be sure to let me know. You can either comment here or on the Reddit thread or in the comment section, and I'll help you the best I can. This is the foundations of experimentation on all of your guys' ends. My experiences are only those of a single player, but if we can get thousands of people trying this out, the adaptations, the optimizations, the revelations will come exponentially faster. Please feel free to try this out in your games and help develop this build even more. It's a very noob-friendly build that works against higher level players too, even up to Masters and lower GM in my experience. I put a ton of time into both this build and also this video, so be sure to drop a subscription, a like, and an upvote. My name is Walnut, and I will see you guys next time.